Hello all. Welcome to the Remember the 400s YouTube channel. My name is Miriam Jackson and I am an RT400 youth representative representing the New York, New Jersey chapter. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today's video is going to be one of a series of education videos that RT400 will be presenting as we tackle some very important topics that face the children of color through their academic experience. Whether it's addressing how children of color deal with the transition from high school to college to adapting to the new world of virtual learning, RT400 will be exploring these topics with in-depth interviews and programs. Today, I welcome you to join us as we discuss with college freshmen, a third-year medical student, as well as a university professor, as we speak about the transition from high school to college. Unfortunately, we all know the statistics are alarmingly negative for students of color. Factors like academic preparation, financial resources, and family dynamics tend to have detrimental effects on their success. These factors are well documented. Today, we take a somewhat different approach. We will look at students that are prospering and discuss the factors that allowed for their success. Through this forum, we aim to change the narrative and provide our youth with tools that will increase their chances for success. Hope you enjoy! To get some personal insight into the challenges that students of color face when transitioning from high school to college, I had the pleasure of speaking to William Daniels, first-year student attending Princeton University. Looking back at your 4 years of high school, how do you think your high school prepared you, and what ways did your high school prepare you for your college education and where you are now as a freshman at Princeton?
I'll say that my school offered me certain opportunities that I know aren't afforded to other schools, especially other public schools. My school paid for all my AP tests. My school paid for me to take the ACT. My school had summer SAT programs online. I didn't take those, but I know multiple people who did, and they found them helpful. And I really feel, especially my school faculty, really stressed us the importance of not only graduating but going having a plan afterwards. We met with the counselor, at least I met with the counselor at least 2 times per year to set up my schedule, and I tell her my goals. Originally I said I want to go to Yale University. She's sort of just like, oh, okay, cool, we'll try. And you sort of check in with them and they check in with you and see how it's going. Of course, not everybody takes advantage of these. Like my counselor knew me by my first name. Not everybody is that close with their counselor, but my counselor also had my sister, so I've known her for a little while.
Right.
Yeah. And also what really helped with the school, I didn't mean to cut you off, but my school also had a very strong competitive culture at my school. Some for the good, some for the bad. A lot of people really strove to be in the top 10%, top 5%, top 1%. Basically, half the class wants to be the valedictorian for going into freshman year. And so it's very competitive. And that competitive spirit really drove me specifically, I can't speak for everybody, to do better. Though it could be stressful, it did push me to do better because it set the standard. Say, I'll give an example. If you go into school and you know that all of your friends have a 1400 or plus SAT, you're going to feel kind of way if you don't have that. And so you're going to work your butt off so you're not the outcast. So you're not the person who's left out. And I'll also say that my school didn't really force that on us because people could choose what type of scene they want to be a part of. They could choose to leave that alone and just chill in the corner and take their time, or they could choose to participate. It was really their choice.
Right. So then how do you think that that environment helped you in your transition to college now and what you're doing now? Like, do you think it's helped you do better in your classes? It's helped you, be able to reach out to your professors or reach out to your counselors or, not be like shy away from doing things like that? Because I know that some people have trouble reaching out to professors and counselors and TAs and things like that.
I'll say for this one in specific, to be specific, is my school didn't really teach me how to be communicative and reach out, though they did promote that and say reach out to your teachers and whatnot. What really helped though was when the competition was getting really stressful for me, is that I went and I told my mom. I told my mom I have one too many courses. I have my activities aren't adding up. I'm supposed to be in two places at the same time, and it doesn't make any sense. My mom sat me down and she listened to me, and then we set up a plan for all of junior year. If I just called my mom, like if I went to the bathroom, I sent her a text because I was feeling very stressful. Either I got a bad grade on a test or I forgot that I had homework due the day. I could just go into the bathroom and I could talk with her. And if it really got really bad, she'd take me home sometimes, like it was getting really stressful, and we'd have Chick-fil-A in the car. And then I'd come back after the class back to school, and I'd go into the next class and pull myself together.
Yeah.
And that really taught me that uh, school and academic success really requires you to ask for help. And that's something I learned, especially with online university, is that you need to reach out and ask for the help that you need. Like the first thing that I did was I signed up for group study sessions just to make friends and have people in the same predicament as me, so that I have people to relate to, people to fall back on, people to ask help from as well. I never missed a tutoring session, and I always asked as many questions like as I could. I said I say a rule of thumb is to send an email out to your professors before you start the course. I know I did that, and it really helps because they'll tell you straight. They won't sugarcoat anything. I had one professor tell me this percent of students get A's, this percent of students get B's, this percent of students get C's, and it usually corresponds with how much work they put in. You either are going to put in the effort and get an A or a B, or you're not going to put in any effort and you're going to fail my course.
Right.
And said that, and that was really helpful. And then as well, I reached out. My school has a program for students of color, a mentorship program, and I reached out and I applied to that, and I got it. And I got a mentor of color for this whole freshman year. That's been really helpful because he's in the same predicament as I am, or at least he was last year or 2 years ago. And he was really able to walk me through planning my classes for the next semester. He also has the same major as me. I plan on, well, this isn't set in stone. It's either economics or international public relations and stuff like that. It's really just politics and economics combined is the type of I'm trying to go into. But yeah, that was really helpful and helped me sort of understand how to forge my path at Princeton. And it wasn't that he was doing anything radical. It's just that support, because it's different than high school. Like my mom went through high school just like me, and I could ask her for help. But this is my mom didn't go to the same university as me. She doesn't know what it's like. Each university is different, and so you need to ask for help from people who know.
Exactly. So then, like, even going back to high school, and looking at the demographics of your school, and even in that competitive, that peer competition program that you were a part of, what did it look like? Like, were you one of the only, people that looked like you in your classes? Like, and how did that affect you in high school and even now in college? Like, has that gone with you? Have those same feelings gone with you since being in high school? And like, what was that like?
It was interesting because I would say my school was decently diverse. There was a lot of minorities at my school, not necessarily a lot of Black people. There was a lot of minorities at my school, and but in the most competitive students, the top 10%, the top 20%, the top 30%, because a lot of people were vying for those upward positions at the school. It wasn't really that diverse. There was multiple times that I was the only Black person in the class. Actually, I got pretty used to it. That was kind of interesting that when I'd see another Black person in my class, I'd be like, wow,
Right.
okay, this is cool. Like this is something nice, right? Because you start paying attention to that when you realize that, like, over and over again, because this has been going on since middle school. There's the high school system, middle school system are pretty similar in that starting from seventh grade that, oh, I'm the only Black person here. And that's a novelty. You're like, okay, this is weird, but it's fine. It doesn't matter, right? You tell yourself it doesn't matter. It goes on through eighth grade, then ninth grade. But you'll occasionally have some Black people in your class, but they wouldn't be in the most rigorous courses. They wouldn't be in your calculus course.
Right.
And that was strange. And going into college, it's a similar predicament, but I learned to seek out people like me, and also not to shy away from the uncomfortability, the how uncomfortable it is to be the only in my class. It's
Right.
sort of you ignore it, you make friends, but then you also find a place where people like you can talk about what it feels and what's going on in your own personal experiences.
Right. I totally get you. Like, especially in high school and in middle school too, like being one of the only Black people in the class was always just something that really deterred me from either, raising my hand or being as vocal as I could be in class. So when I did see peers that, looked like me, I was like, oh my God, like I can be comfortable. And of course, like the teacher always sat us next to each other, or we always found our way back to each other, because it's like you kind of have to stick with your own people, because especially in an environment like that, because it's kind of hard to sometimes, for some people, for others it's not that hard to put yourself out there and to be like, hey teacher, like I'm here, notice me, talk to me, and things like that.
Yeah, I know for me personally, the biggest issue was not the fact of being necessarily the only in my class, was the fact that every non-black person usually has a story of like, oh, I know a black person who did this, or I have a black friend. So the fact that that pressure was on me, that it sort of, you become a representative of your whole entire race. So everything that you do is sort of like, oh, black people do that. So
Right,
if you do well in class, it's sort of like, oh, black people do well in class.
right,
If you wear your pants sagging, it's like, oh, black people sag. You know,
right,
and what I mean is sort of, you're always there to reinforce or disprove the stereotypes that people already have, and that's a lot of stress on a person. And so it's sort of hard to unteach and unlearn that you're the representative and just be yourself, which is
right.
very difficult to do in high school.
Exactly. But yeah, I think that talking about how you've used your resources that were given to you in high school and even until now, I feel like you've done a really good job. Grace Van Atta, who was a first-year student at Johns Hopkins University. Do you think that the 4 years of high school, especially like your junior and senior year, prepared you for your college experience now?
I think in some ways it did. So I think a lot of my challenging classes, especially in science, really prepared me. So like my AP Bio class and my anatomy class really helped me this year in my neuroscience class, which was really great. And definitely I would say the higher level classes from my high school experience definitely helped prep me, especially for learning how to teach yourself the material and studying skills, and also my writing classes in my junior and senior years of high school helped me.
Do you think that your teachers from high school prepared you for what your professors would be like now in college?
It was definitely different. So in high school, I think the teachers kind of give you an idea that your college professors might be more strict. But really, I've found that my college professors are really nice and they want to get to know you and really open to answering your questions and helping you with any material that you might not understand.
Right. So then, with student organizations and things like that, when it comes to helping with mental health, because that's something that's really being talked about right now, especially with the times that we're in. Do you think that things were made available to you at your school when it came to, getting help with your mental, whether it was even from your professors or from other students, whether they're like seniors or even other freshmen? Do you think that those resources were available to you?
I think my professors were definitely very understanding of your mental health, and if you couldn't get something in, you could just email them, and they would be very understanding about that. And I know my university has provided a lot of resources in terms of mental health, and they're trying their best with counseling services and stuff like that, which is obviously different because it's online. And in terms of student organizations, there's a bunch of really great mental health kind of advocacy going around in different organizations. This year I got involved with a couple mental health for student athletes organizations at my university, and that was really great, getting to go to different panels and discussions about mental health and just to raise awareness among my peers.
Do you think that your high school experience and getting ready for college and all of the prep that we did leading up to university, did that help you to, do better now? Or were you kind of like lost when you first started and like high school didn't really help with that? Like, how would you gauge that?
I think it was a mix. So definitely starting off my freshman year, I was a little lost because I had to pick out my classes and kind of get everything going by myself, and there wasn't much guidance there. So that was, it was a lot, and it was hard to kind of transition from the high school like day-to-day to the college day-to-day. And I think a lot of the things that were helpful more from my high school experience were learning what I wanted from my college experience. So, for example, in high school, I was part of the fencing team, and I knew I wanted to continue fencing in college, and I was recruited for fencing to Hopkins, and that fencing community in college also really helped me transition into college, because all of the upperclassmen on the team were super encouraging and were always there if you had any questions. So I think finding community is something that I really enjoyed in high school, and I knew I wanted to continue that into college, and that definitely was a big part of my freshman and fall.
I had the pleasure of speaking to Joel Katz, a professor at Jersey City University in New Jersey. I know that you've been in the school system for 20 plus years. When you look at the students of color compared to their counterparts, what is their preparedness like when they come into their freshman year of university versus even their senior year? Like, how do you see their progression with their use of resources or even their preparedness for being in university?
Well, I should perhaps first say that most of my students are students of color. New Jersey City University is in Jersey City, and it's about 40% Latinx and about 20 to 25% African American, and then smatterings of Philippine, Asians. The white students are about 20% of the student body, so it's really, we're talking mostly students of color. Right. So, it's the generalizations, therefore, are pretty broad.
Right.
But, the vast majority, the parents have not attended college, so there's nothing for them to model on. Some of them just don't really know how to be a college student.
Right.
Study habits, time organization.
Right. Okay, so then what are the resources that your school has to help these students that, have two jobs or have children? Or are there like different programs that they can be a part of to help them learn different study habits and teach them how to be better students?
Yeah, I'm not perfect at rattling off statistics,
right.
But I think somewhere between 70 and 75% of our students get some form of financial aid. So it's a very high proportion. Okay. There is an Office of Specialized Services for serving special needs students. There at different times have been on campus a reading center and some tutoring available. That's been a bit controversial in that with recent budget hardships, some of those services have been curtailed. So there are resources on campus, but they're not enough. I mean, there's also a psychological services counseling center that's very understaffed, and it's very much needed, especially during the pandemic. But it's very understaffed, and also for a lot of the students, even if resources like that are available, for them to have time to get to them and the initiative. And a lot of them culturally are not accustomed to seeking that kind of help, so it's challenging. There's one other thing I could add that you might find of interest is I come from a family of educators, and my father was a professor at Howard University for 18 years. So, a different, a white Jewish man like myself taught at Howard. He actually founded a department there. So,
okay, cool. That's cool.
In a different era. This was from the late 60s to the mid 80s. But he faced similar issues in some ways with his students.
Of course. Okay, well, thank you so much for doing this interview. So that was really good insight into the challenges students face from the educator's standpoint. Now we'll talk to a student that successfully navigated the undergraduate experience. My journey now takes me to Jeffrey Blair, a medical student in his 3rd year of training. So today we're going to be talking about undergraduate students, students going to college, their experience during your university years, after university, and going into the higher levels of learning, and how they can use their resources to be successful for their university years and also after university. So Jeffrey, like I said, and
Yes.
like is obvious, you've been through undergrad and university college already.
I have. Yeah.
So how was that experience for you? Like, how did you use your resources? What resources did you use? Tell me about all that stuff.
So I guess just first, my experience was certainly a challenging one. I think the first thing is to realize that I am the oldest of 4, so I was the first one in my family to even go to school. Right. So I think that being a challenge in itself, because you don't have anyone there to sort of map out that path for you, right?
Exactly.
But I think so. For me, I think trying to find the resource of a mentor, I think that's one of the most important things being an undergraduate student is, who can I find to help me really walk that path with confidence?
Right,
I think
exactly.
a lot of times, going to school, especially as a freshman, you don't really know what those ropes are, right? And this is the first time that you're going to be, out of the house maybe, right? So
exactly.
really try and find someone in a group of people maybe that can really help to make that path a bit easier.
Right, exactly. Like,
Sure.
I have older cousins and people that I can look to kind of have that guideline and see, like, what I should be doing during my first year of school. Of course, things are different now.
Yeah.
But I, had that, I was able to see, like, oh, so this is what you do, and this is what you do when you're a freshman, and this is what you do when you're talking to your professors and things like that.
Sure.
So it was good to have that, that role model, I guess, and that pathway, that guideline. But with you, I guess it was different because you didn't have that.
Definitely.
And going into medical school and higher learning, are those resources still available to you? How did you use them? Are there more? Are there less?
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I would say I think that it's pretty much the same concept. I think you still want to make sure to take advantage of all your resources. But at the same time, going into med school too, it's about, again, still trying to find those people that can help you in terms of mentorship, and still trying to understand that you are in an environment of learning.
Right.
So you're never going to be any other time in your life in a position where you have access to this many people and resources to be able to enhance your knowledge of any particular topic, right? So whether you want to go into engineering or medicine, or you want to go into art or writing, this is the place where you can really try and fully engage into whatever your interests are. Try and find, again, a mentor. Try and spend time with different clubs or organizations that may specify in those specific roles, because that's how you can really enhance your education outside the classroom too as well.
Right. So how have you, on your road and on your journey through medical school, how have you been bringing more diversity into your life now?
That's a great question. So for me, one of the things that has inspired me and really motivated me is trying to figure out how do we bring about increased diversity into medical school classrooms, and how do we look at the relationship between African Americans and their relationship with medicine and put that in medical school textbooks. Because if we can do that, we can really enhance the learning for all people, but also we can try and really target the health discrepancies and the different diseases that plague the Black community. In particular, for example, we can look at some of the reasons why we have an increased death rate for Black women in childbirth, right? So these are all things that we can look at to see, again, how does diversity help us all win in the end, right? And so for me, one of the things that has inspired me too as well was the killing of George Floyd. In sort of the lieu of all of that, and seeing all the protests throughout the country, trying to figure out how can I, as someone in the world of academia, how can I play my part by trying to do presentations or push different resolutions to try and increase that diversity and say, Black lives have to matter as well in the field of medicine too as well.
Right, exactly.
Wow. That was really inspiring to see a young person like Jeffrey using his platform to bring diversity and change in his medical school. I would like to take the time to thank all of the individuals that participated in this segment. There are lots of challenges that today's children face when making that transition from high school to college. Whether it be one's socioeconomic status, being a first-generation college student, language barriers, high costs of school, to unforeseen global issues such as the pandemic, it was interesting to hear the students' and faculty's thoughts on the various tools that helps lead to success. I definitely learned a lot and hope you did as well. Until next time, this is Miriam Jackson reporting to you from the New York, New Jersey chapter.